Things you own end up owning you.
What's going on, cutie pies? Hope everybody's doing great out there. My guest today is Pedro DoAmaral. Pedro is a biomedical and biotech researcher, and I wanted to bring him on to talk about the intricacies of certain fad diets that are going on right now, as it relates to the diets like the carnivore diet and quote-unquote the animal-based diet. We also chat about my recent visit to Florida and compare it to California. So if you have any thoughts on where you think I should live, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to check out IHateOatMilk.com and get yourself some fun merch, and I hope you enjoy the show. Yeah, there's a sweet spot, right? All right, so Pedro DoAmaral, welcome back, sir. We got some synthwave going for you. I'll turn it off in a second. Good to be here, bro. Yeah, man, welcome back, brother. You're the best. What were you saying? We were talking about working out there, right? And it's like, yeah. But there's a sweet spot. I think for me personally, and I think honestly over time, I think it's for most people. I think it's like after breakfast, maybe even after breakfast and then a snack, and then that whatever window is like the best time for most people to work out, where they're like the strongest, they feel the freshest, and like, you know, they don't have a whole day of stuff that they've been doing, so they're not like worn out. What do you think?
Yeah, so I remember watching one of Jeff Nippard's video. You know who that guy is, right? I'm not a fan of him
Yeah.
He had some good
Everything is scientific, just like everything. Like how to take a shit scientifically. It's just like...
You have to do it a specific way.
This is the... yes.
God forbid, the toxins might back up a little bit.
And I have 14 papers to back that up, I'm telling you. And like he finds them too, right? You're like, Jesus.
Yeah. But I listened to some of his stuff and I implemented it, and it makes sense. Between the 3 to 5 p.m. window is when your motor units are most primed for heavy lifting. And if you can get your glycogen levels up throughout the day for that lift, then it helps out a lot. Your strength just goes up. Your blood pressure can be a little bit higher without any drawbacks, little things like that improve your performance. Versus first thing in the morning, you just woke up, you still got a little bit of melatonin circulating in your bloodstream, you're still kind of fatigued. And unless that epinephrine kicks in, it's not really going to be a good workout.
Yeah. It's like, I think it can last for some people for some amount of time. Have you ever gotten obsessed about like early morning fasted cardio? Like a lot of bodybuilders do, and fitness chicks, right? Like they love that shit. They love that. Because, you know, if you've never done it before, you got to admit that there is that like sexy appeal of like adrenaline in the morning, or you wake up and you're like, all right, you know, like it's usually with people that have had some bad things happen in their life maybe, and like they're like, all right, or maybe they gotten really fat and really out of shape, and then they, you know, do the whole thing of like, okay, I'm gonna get myself together, I'm gonna start waking up doing early morning cardio, and I think they'll wake up, have a coffee. Monsters though, usually it's like a monster, right? Or like two of them maybe,
or an oat milk latte.
or all three, right? yeah. And then they're just going, you know, they're just fucking rocking it. But so many of those people crash. Like almost all of them, I think, crash eventually. You just can't, you can't do that. You can only, I think there must be some sort of, you know, reserve system. And I mean, there is. But like, you know, I feel like you're just using up that reserve system. And then once it's gone, man, it's hard to bring that shit back.
When I was big on Jocko Willing's stuff, and he's always up 4:30 a.m. He's posting the watch pictures. I did that for a good 2-3 months, and I was more productive. I got more done, but I also crashed like at least 2 to 3 times in a day.
Exactly.
And at that point, I mean, it evens out. Like the same amount of work that I got done from the 40 a.m. wake up time versus the 8 a.m. wake up time was identical.
Hey man, have you ever seen Mark Wahlberg's daily schedule? Have you ever heard of that thing?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to pull this up. So Mark Wahlberg wakes up at like 2 a.m. I think, and he has like a schedule written out. And
who's Mark Wahlberg again? First of all,
Mark Wahlberg, dude, Marky Mark. Come on, man.
It's not ringing.
Come on, dude. The guy from, what's he most famous for? Well, he was Marky Mark. He was a rapper from Boston.
Yeah.
He did The Fighter. Okay. He's been in like a billion movies.
The Gaines movie. That guy.
Gangs movie? What Gangs movie?
Gaines. With
yeah, about Miami with The Rock. Yeah. That's a pretty good one actually. That was kind of fun. Well, if you're into like synthwave and like Miami lifestyle in the 80s and doing cocaine. Yeah, it's fun. So here's his daily schedule. 2:30, wake up. 2:45, prayer time. 3:15 breakfast. And then there's like a workout and a post-workout meal. And then he goes to bed at like 7:30 p.m. And like not like a sane person would like look at that and be like, why don't you just go to bed at like 10:30 p.m. and just wake up like a normal person? Like, what is it with people doing these fucking extreme things? And it's just really funny, dude. So like, they did this video of him with one of the nighttime show hosts. You know what I'm talking about? English guy, I can't remember.
Where they followed him?
Yeah, they did it with him. Like, they went to the gym at 2:30 a.m. and he's like up and doing like push-ups and shit. Like, it's just so fucking funny to me, dude.
Wow, that's great. At least he proved that he does it. I mean, you have video proof. That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I guess so. You never know.
Well, yeah, I don't know if he's still doing that. I bet you he's not. I guarantee you he's not. There's no way.
It doesn't last. It's just dumb. It's like, I don't know, man. I do think, you know, people talk about circadian rhythm and all that, and I don't know if we really ever figured the whole picture out, because I think there's more to it. But there is something about, like, for me personally, and with other clients that I've worked with and talked to, if I go to bed, say 12:30, you know, at night, midnight, after midnight, and I get my 8 hours of sleep, I'm not as fresh as if I go to bed at, say, 10:30 and still get the same amount of sleep. I just don't feel as fresh. I still feel good. Like, I still need that like 8 hours. That's like for me, I like absolutely need it. Anything I can pass on 7, but it's like, oof, get into that fucking zone of like me, you know, like
yeah.
But there's something about that sweet, I think, going to bed a little bit earlier than what we're used to. And I think that if we were still kind of living in nature, quote unquote, even though I know that doesn't mean much anymore these days, but I feel like probably come 10 o'clock, since it gets dark already, even in the summer, it gets dark at what, 6:30, 7 p.m., 7:30 tops? You're probably going to be starting to wind down and wanting to go to sleep. So it seems like it would be a more of a natural sleeping schedule than staying up to like 2 a.m., say, and still getting 8 hours, but waking up at 10. I think it's not quite the same. You don't feel as fresh.
I can confirm that for you now, especially my schedule. Like I mentioned, I'm up 4 a.m. The only way I can function if I'm up 4 a.m. is if I sleep before 10 p.m. So I'm in bed 9 to 9:30 p.m. as it stands. And that's like 7 hours roughly. I feel so much better getting those 7 hours and being up at 4 a.m. than I would from 12 o'clock and then 7 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. I am so lethargic and my brain doesn't function properly. I don't have good concentration if I sleep past 12. It's always been the bane of my life. My friends would go out and enjoy life past midnight, and I would be the guy that went to bed early because it messes me up. Yeah. So I feel that.
Same here. I think most people, I think it just, I mean, there are those rare occasions of people that like their entire fucking life, they've been going to bed at like 2 a.m. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I've never met one that's like really healthy or something, or is like a, you know, doing something really, really, let's say they're a high performer in you know, athlete or you know, or just or say a job executive, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've never met one that's just their entire life they've been going to bed late and waking up kind of like early afternoon. They always seem to be not the healthiest types.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you know, prove me wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there.
There's always outliers, but the majority falls on what you're describing.
Yeah, I think that before midnight is probably like a sweet spot of going to sleep, eh? Yeah. Well, all right, man. So what else you been up to, bro?
Same old, man. Just school, work, and rinse and repeat. That nothing new on my side. What about you? What's it like in LA at the moment? When's the move to Tampa? People are waiting here.
Working on it. I really am. Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, you and I met in Tampa, by the way, so it was a good time.
Yeah, so people know.
Yeah, you know, like we talked about, there is a reason that a shitload of people live in Southern California. It's a great spot. But it just has been so abused and ruined over the last probably more than 20 years now, but especially the last 20 years, that it just became not what it could be. Because it could be literally heaven. Because we have mountains here, right? There's no mountains in Florida, right? We have mountains here, and we have, you know, all sorts of parks, and we have the fucking beach. And yeah, it's a little bit colder. That is the only one thing that Florida, it's like hands down is better. The beaches are better simply just because you have warm water most of the year. By the way, like I took a fucking dip in Miami like in January. You can't do that here. Like I was, your balls would literally fall off and roll into the fucking Miami South Beach, Yeah. So, but it's hard to like completely sever it, but at the same time, it's like that relationship with an ex-girlfriend that like you're like no, like this time it'll work and we'll get back together, and you're just like, all right, bro.
I feel like you're talking to me personally.
Hey, we've all done that. We've all been there and done that. It's normal. That's what I'm saying. It's funny, right?
But I agree with you, man. Especially San Diego, like we talked about it so in depth. It is by far the nicest city in America that I've ever been to. But the only thing is the prices are ridiculous. Even some of the people, my boss, the guy that I work for, he lives in San Fran, and he thought about moving to San Diego, but because the price is almost identical, he ruled that out. Everything works. Everything is amazing about San Diego. All the list is checked out, but all of his bullet points on the list. But the problem is the price. And it apparently seems like it's going up. I mean, rent around Tampa area went up from when I got here, 2019, about $200, $300 for the same one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, it's crazy. To be fair, I have been looking at, apartment buildings and stuff, apartment prices and stuff. Honestly, dude, it's like the same as LA. It's like the same as LA.
Is it really?
It's pretty much the same. I mean, I'm sure there are surrounding areas, and I don't know them that well, but I'm sure, if you're 30, 40 minutes away from Tampa, for sure it's probably going to be cheaper. But not by as much as we would imagine, because
I didn't know that. I thought LA was like $2,200 or above for like a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Yeah, like if you want like a nice one, you can get one.
Right.
Like that's the other kind of part of the puzzle here is that like I've been in a rent-controlled building. Well, the quality, but I mean like I've been in a rent-controlled building for like 6-7 years, so my rent goes up like 2% or some shit like that every year. So it's, I'm paying $50 more. So that's the only thing that's been good for me in LA, because otherwise, I would be paying $2,200 a month, I don't know, man. I don't know. But it's a sweet spot.
I know one thing, though, bro. I mean, we talked about this, too, but I know that because Tampa is the hub right now, there's so many people. I think it was Austin between 2016 to 2019, and then 2020, roughly 2021 is when Tampa just blew up. Yeah. Everybody started coming into St. Petersburg. Yeah. Everybody started coming to Clearwater area. I think within the next 5 years, at most 10 years, this place will be pretty much identical to most of the Californian cities. But at the same time, as people move out of California, there's room for change in California itself. Yeah. And so we may have a completely different California in 5 years as well, which may be even more optimal by the time. I mean, I clearly don't want to be in the same position I'm in now. I want to get my finances up. And if I can get my finances up, what's stopping me from living in paradise, basically?
You see, you're thinking about it too. You like it here too. Yeah, it's, I don't want to be disingenuous, because it's like people, it's so much easier to just put your foot down and be like, no, California's the fucking worst, or Florida is the worst, or that's the best. And it's just like fucking so dumb. Because, by the way, everybody in California thinks that everybody in Florida is like a redneck with one tooth.
Yeah.
And it's like so not like that. I'm sure there's some fucking spots like that in the Everglades there, which nobody goes to or lives in, right? But it's like I drove from all the way from northern Florida, from Jacksonville down to Miami, and I've driven through all the major cities, and it's like so just as diverse as California and all sorts of different people. Like I didn't have that experience once where I felt like I was in. By the way, and I lived in Midwest and the South, and I've been to those places, and it's like it's not like that at all. Right. But everybody in California thinks that way. And of course, everybody in Florida who's like maybe never been to California thinks that it's just
hippies or something.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, non-binary trans people with pink hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all that it is here.
I actually have a question regarding your trip. How did you like Jacksonville? Because I've never been there, and I heard it's pretty nice.
I was just there for a day, and then we went down to St. Augustine. But yeah, I'm just like what you said about Tampa. I think the same thing will happen to Jacksonville. It'll keep growing. It's that northern kind of tip, so it's not what I think people imagine about Florida.
Florida, right.
Which is, by the way, a whole other conversation. Like, I think all those stereotypes, just like with California too, if you go to San Francisco and then you just go to LA, you think that the entire state of California is like that. And it's like not at all that way. You could go to the middle of California, and it might as well be Kentucky. There's straight up
Right.
like redneck people out there that live around people that do meth, and it's like wild. It's very different. And I think the same thing happens with Florida. People go to Miami and they experience that like humidity, and because by the way, it was way hotter in Miami. It was like I felt it as I drove from Tampa, or no, I drove from Vero Beach, which is like middle of Florida on the Atlantic coast. I drove down to Miami. I was like I felt it like as I'm driving. Like the weather is different, the people are different. It's different, and it's any big city will do that, of course. You know what I'm saying? So it's really easy to go to the biggest city of the state and just think that the entire state is like that, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the humidity increases the heat, like how much heat you feel. Like if you put your hand over boiling water, the steam is what burns you and not so much the heat. So I think the same thing's happening when you go to places as humid as Miami. Makes sense.
Yeah. So we were in Jacksonville, and then I went down to St. Augustine. Have you been there? That's about like 40 minutes away from Jacksonville.
I haven't.
Cool spot too, though. It's a bit more touristy because it's like apparently it's the oldest city of the Americas or whatever. It wasn't part of the United States. It was like 15 something. I can't remember the exact date. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong if you live in St. Augustine. But it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's really cool. It's unique. They got like old stuff there, there's like historical stuff there. So it's cool, but it's quieter, Of course, it's not San Diego where you kind of have that sweet balance of city, and then you can just go to the mountains and do on a hike and there'll be nobody there. Which is why.
So what are we doing, bro? Are we gonna settle in San Diego?
I'm sorry. I know. We keep going around. I'm sorry. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start playing the lottery, all right? And we're gonna win a shitload of money. And we're buying a compound in San Diego.
That really is the only determining factor. If we made a couple million, what does it matter really? I don't think it would.
All right. So to be fair, okay. How about Tampa though? What are some of the negatives? Maybe not some, or maybe one or two. Like what's a genuine down factor of Tampa?
The traffic is growing. I do the drive from Clearwater to Tampa itself, the city.
Yeah.
And it's 20 miles, less than 20 miles. It should take me about 30 minutes. It's like almost an hour at times if I don't leave a certain time.
Yeah.
So the traffic is growing. You got that problem. Then it's just flat land. You don't feel as inspired as you're in California. And you're looking out from like a cliff into the beach, and it's like,
you got that synth wave going.
Something changes inside of you. The flat, I think, being in a flat land really affects some people, and I'm one of them. And then
you like the mountains.
I do, but I love the beach way more. It's just that.
Oh, same here. Okay, same here. So see, like if you had to choose one, it would still be the beach, right? Like if you had to choose Colorado, or you got to choose Florida, like one or the
Florida.
Okay, me too.
Florida.
Yeah, mountains are awesome. I get it. You get that extra CO2. Okay, blah blah blah. But I just gives like, I'm not so much of a, those like hikers that like go on like people that go on a hike with you and like time themselves.
No, I've never been with people like that.
Well, I've been with people like that. I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Go fuck yourself. Like, I'm good. So traffic is growing. It's not as inspiring because it's not such a diverse environment there, I guess.
Yeah. Other than that, that's it, man. Because Tampa is a hub for biotech businesses, and so if I was going to go into that field of work or in the industry, I would make way more money here than I think I would in California.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
And then outside of that, I mean, nothing really. Prices aren't bad. Besides rents, if you own a house, you're actually better off. But at the same time, the houses here are not the same as California. It's like there's some that are better in California, some that are better in Tampa. It depends what kind of house you pick. So some of the California houses are made of stucco, right? And so they could collapse at any moment.
It's fucking true, dude. That's one thing that I noticed immediately when I moved to LA, even like my first year. I was like, what are these? Because you could hear everything here. Knock on wood, I'm blessed to be living in an apartment building where all my neighbors are quiet and chill. Like I don't have any issues with that. But I've lived many other places where it was like, you just hear people. They're not even being that loud, but you just hear them doing everything. You hear them fucking next door, like literally, like, and you feel like you're right there, because everything is just made out of shit here. That's the. So that's a better thing of Florida, right? Because you do have that weather, so
more space too.
Yeah, and more space. And more space. I still think, of course, man, buying a house anywhere down here is going to be even if you have all the money, it's still going to be more expensive than it is to buy a house in the nice suburbs of Florida. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well. All right, bro. Playing the lottery.
We're gonna have to figure this out,
man. When was the last time you were here? 2 years ago?
2019? Yeah, 2019 I was there.
Okay.
But I want to come there after I graduate this July for at least 2-3 weeks.
When are you graduating? At the end of the month or beginning, or do you know? Or
yeah, so I graduate July 7th, I think it is. And then I'm going to hopefully go to see my family in Brazil that I haven't seen in a while.
And then on the way back, you make a little pit stop in San Diego, and I meet you. My birthday's on the 27th. The Red Hot Chili Peppers.
August?
July.
Gotcha.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers are playing a concert down in San Diego. I got an extra ticket. You're in. Let's go.
What, bro?
Yes.
Red Hot Chili? That's like the dream.
That's the dream. That's why I got the tickets. It's my birthday, number one. On the day of my birthday, they're playing a concert in San Diego where they don't check your fucking cards like they do here, right? They don't ask you to check your fake card. Not that I have one. Nobody does. It's all legit. And nobody cares. You don't have to wear a mask. Which is funny, again, because it's 2 hours away from LA. And it's like, it might as well be a different state. Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's really funny. So, yeah, you go down there, and it's we're doing it. July 27th, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
All right.
John Frusciante's back.
We do this, and I'm going to regret living in Florida. So that means I got to start applying to school in California.
Oh, man, because San Diego is nice, dude. And Mexico's nice, right there, too. It also might as well be fucking Mexico. By the way, people come to LA and they think Mexican food is good here. Go to San Diego.
There you go.
Because when I went there, I was blown away. And then I met up with Matt Blackburn over there, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he took me, we went to some spots. He didn't even know either. Even though he's from fucking San Diego, this guy, and I made fun of him for it. I was like, but he didn't know anything. I was like, how do you not know, like, the spot, you know? Like if you come to LA, like, I'll know some spots to take you, like, you know, that everybody goes to. You got to go to, that's like, this is the quintessential LA spot. Like, Matt didn't really have a spot, and I was like, all right. But we got some, you just go to a random taco shop, any random one, and it's fucking unbelievable. It's like really good Mexican food. It's not like that stuff that you get at those like shitty Mexican restaurants in the Midwest where it's like a massive plate bigger than your fucking shoulders,
right, yeah.
You know, and it's just like laying there, and it's just covered in cheese. It looks like diarrhea always. It looks the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, it never looks anything. It's not like that. It's like these tacos, and they have like different flavors, and it doesn't look like diarrhea. It looks like it's like well cooked and like put together, and it's like it's that way at every shop there. I mean, I'm sure there's some shitty taco places there, but I'm just saying because I feel like, you know, you got to level up. So they're just leveling each other up, and we went to like a random place, and this is like the best tacos I've ever had in my life. So Mexican food. If you like Mexican food, San Diego.
Yeah, bro, big time. I remember last time I went there, 2018. There was this one small shop, and they rolled burritos about the size of like my forearm for like $8, and it was. I mean, you couldn't eat the whole thing in 2 days, honestly.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn good. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
You brought that up. It's funny. Now that one thing that I will give to Miami, by the way, which Miami's, by the way, it's just LA on water with cocaine and gold diggers. That's the way I put it. I forgot to tweet that. I wanted to tweet that, but I forgot about it. Anyway, but it is. I mean, it's just LA on water. I mean, I know there's minor differences here and there. Like one hilarious thing. Well, okay, let me tell you what I thought of first. You brought up food at like $8 burritos. I went to, like, they have these little Cuban bodegas there in Miami. You know, it's just like these Latina mommies, and they speak straight. That's what I was gonna say. They speak straight up Spanish to you. They give zero fucks. In LA, if you go to like a Mexican shop, and you're like, hey, sir, can I get... They'll get like a little bit uptight because they're having a hard time answering you because usually they don't speak English either. But they get like a little what you can put, you know, and they're like trying, you know, like they don't speak English, but they're trying. So it's like, you know, you feel like taken care of. Dude, you go to Miami, and that's like, I went to a bunch of places like that. And I'm like, hi, can I get a whatever? And they just go, hola, papi. And I just go... I'm sorry. I just want like that thing, and then they give zero fucks. It's like you feel like you're on their turf, you know. And I mean, it might as well be Latin America down there because it's.
Yeah.
I was walking down the street, and all I hear is like Spanish, literally, no joke, not exaggerated.
huge Cuban influence.
Just
there.
like Cuban, Colombians, Venezuelans, they're all fucking there, and Brazilians too. I mean, we have Brazilians here, but it's not as concentrated. They're like wherever I went, it was just all Spanish. It was just, and they don't do that like Mexicans are like they try to explain it to you like, oh well, here they just go and you're like, oh my god, and it's just like I give zero fucks. So I ordered this like thing for breakfast. So I got 3 eggs, 2 hash browns, bacon, sausage, a baguette, and a cafecito. Like a Cuban style. $6.
Yeah, bro, that's the difference.
Now I know it's not organic. I know it's cooked in fucking the worst oil ever.
Best oils.
I know. Yeah. But you can't find that in LA for $6. No. That's the thing. Everything in LA, there is lots of cafes and lots of amazing food and lots of options, but it's all going to be a good
hugely different price.
Probably 18. It used to be 15. Probably like 20 now, bucks,
I remember in West Hollywood area, got ramen and it was like $50 per food option that you wanted. So the ramen bowl plus whatever came with it, $50, bro. That's unreal.
Yeah. They do that with Korean food too here. They fucking which I could not give a fuck for. It's not that I don't like it. I don't know, Korean food. I don't know. Maybe because I didn't grow up with it. Maybe it's not a cultural thing for me. I'm not a fan. Russians don't eat like massive meals like some Asian communities do. Where they eat like bulgogi and all that shit, and it's like, just keep it coming. Just keep it coming. I can't. Like, I get to a point, I'm done. Like, I can't. If I look at another bulgogi, I'm going to throw up right on the plate. Like, I'm full. Like, I'm done. And you go to, like, a Korean place, and it's, like, $45, I think, for an all-you-can-eat buffet. And, yeah, it's, like, unbelievable, massive amounts of food. But for me, it's never worth it because I'm just, like, once I'm full, I'm full. I can't do it. But there's those people that, like, I have a buddy. He'll just keep going. He'll just be there for 2 hours straight. Just, more rice, sir? Yeah. It's just, you're like, holy fuck, man. So that can be really expensive. And there's lots of like Asian food here and all that stuff. I don't know about there.
So then we got to juggle between Asian food, $6 meals, $8 burritos, and then red hot chili peppers in San Diego versus Tampa.
Dude, by the way,
to juggle here, bro.
By the way, they're playing in Miami in August too, and I'm thinking about buying tickets for that too. And going there.
I got 2 months roughly before I go back to school. So if you want to do it, I'm down.
We're doing cocaine and seeing the Red Hot Chili Peppers in Miami.
Sounds good. So cocaine is actually a beneficial alkaloid. Helps dopamine,
All right, good segue. All right, alkaloids. Okay.
All right, here we go.
You and I have been going back and forth about this fucking guy, Mr. Paul Saladino, right? And other people, because he's not the first one.
He's a vegan, right?
Yeah. He's a plant-based, animal-based
vegan. There we go.
/
that makes
paleo
sense.
/ all the other fucking words that you can make up to sell.
Ray P 2.0.
Well, yeah, now that's true, isn't it? We've been going back and forth because I kind of want to set it up for people maybe here. And correct me if I'm wrong or when I'm wrong. I just want to talk about first, like, okay, diets, how the progression of the diet fads have gone, in the last, say, 20 years. I feel like around 2000s, the early 2000s, it was still popular to think that vegetarianism or being that plant-based word was not a word back then. It was just vegetarianism. And nobody called themselves vegan, right? It was just, I'm vegetarian. It was like a thing. And then you had the people that would be like, I eat lacto-ovo, right? Which is like, I eat dairy and eggs, or I don't, blah, blah, blah. Or my favorite, the ones that call themselves vegetarian but eat fish. It's my absolute favorite people because it's, okay. Anyway. So I feel like that was the case. And then we had the fad of like, paleo, the early onset of that with Rob Wolf and what's that researcher, Lauren Cordain, his name. Well, the guy that. Well, okay, but you're following me, kind of, right?
But I know who Rob Wolf. Yeah,
Rob Wolf, Lauren Cordain. I'm pronouncing it wrong, I think, but it's something like that. That's the guy that kind of did a lot of the research, and then Rob Wolf they did it together. And Rob Wolf made it more popular, popularized it more. Right, so then we had like the response to vegetarianism, right, of like going paleo. But then that kind of died off too. And then veganism has been like sprinkled throughout this entire time.
Yeah.
It's like building. It's like still popular, right? I feel like there's still probably lots of people becoming vegan. There's of course lots of people that are not vegan anymore for a certain reason, right? So anyway, and then I feel like veganism kind of took over, kind of became more of the popular, like if you go to YouTube, like what's the popular fat diets, who's making the most videos, like Vegan Gains, right? Like maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. I don't know if that amount of time, but anyway. And then now we're getting to this point where a lot of people are dropping the vegan thing, right? There's lots of videos of people doing videos like, I was vegan for 10 years and it ruined my health. Here's why I am no longer vegan. Lots of those videos, which is, interesting to see. And then now you have like Paul Saladino, which is, I feel like he's like the new fad response to the vegan stuff that was happening for the last few years. So we went from like vegetables, fruits, meat is bad, like completely demonize it, right? Saturated fat is terrible. Eggs are terrible. Eggs are chicken periods. They will kill you. What's that thing they said in that documentary that like eating 2 eggs is like smoking a pack of cigarettes or something like that? That's the study that they quoted or whatever. And then now we have like Paul Saladino, who's like the response to that fad diet of, and his thing is now like, and not only his, by the way, lots of other people are doing the same thing. His thing is like, fuck vegetables. Well, initially it was fuck vegetables, right? I'm carnivore MD. Vegetables are toxic. Fruits and carbohydrates are not necessary because we have gluconeogenesis. So let's throw all that out and let's just focus on the meat. And I feel like that's kind of the progression. You know what I'm saying? Am I missing anything?
He started exactly like Sean Baker started. Sean Baker, this guy's been carnivore for probably 6 years now, but he was in those low carb Reddit. I remember listening to him talk about it, and he was gaining traction with the idea of the carnivore diet long before Paul Saladino jumped on the bandwagon. Paul was a vegetarian or vegan or something like that, where he had eczema.
He says that, by the way, and I've never seen any videos of it, never seen any pictures, and I'm not saying he didn't try, but
right.
you know how people are when they say I did that. Like, what do you mean? Like, were you genuinely fucking vegan for 3 years, or you didn't eat? You never cheated? You never got drunk and had a hamburger? Like,
obviously, you know that even the most devout vegans have their spare moments where they just come off the diet. So it's obviously somebody like Paul, who probably wasn't that way, was going to come off the diet a couple of times. So yeah, he'll say maybe 2 years or however long he did it, that he was in a vegan diet. And then he switched over to carnivore, straight up, no in between, just vegan, carnivore, from one side of the spectrum to the other. Then he gained popularity within like 5 months, and he wrote his book within less than a year.
Yeah. which by the way, okay, so he wrote that book, right? In less than a year, like you said, released it. I think it's been out for 2 years now. Which, by the way, I went to while on my travels, I stopped by a Barnes and Noble. You don't see those around.
That.
Yeah,
I saw that,
and I saw his book, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. So I opened it up, and of course, it says, fruits have fructose, which is terrible for your liver. All the same spiel of fruits are terrible, sugar is very bad. Honey, by the way, you shouldn't have honey if you have metabolic problems. Yada, 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 on and on and on. And then, of course, now he's like posting videos and pictures with like literally a table full of fruits and honey, and he's eating like a can of honey a day or some shit like that, which is all fine, by the way. I just haven't, but you and I have been seeing this issue of people making a statement and then just like stepping over that statement and then just going to another statement. And it's like, well, hold on. Well, what happened to the other statement that you said? Like, do you want to talk about it? You want to address it? And yes, he has kind of addressed it where he says, well, I'm eating sugar. I'm eating rice now. Does that bother you? It's kind of in this, right? In this passive aggressive kind of way.
It was also in a way that sounded exactly like Ray Pete. That's the qualms I have with this. I don't care if this guy went from carnivore to started eating fruits, whatever he wants to say. It's the fact that he talked about it in such a similar manner to what Ray Pete discusses. He said he started with, I started feeling cold, my SHBG levels rose, my testosterone dropped. And so I decided to, you know what, let me just incorporate some fruits. Why fruits? Why not carbohydrates like starches? Why fruits in specific? That's right there. So that kind of segues into Ray Pete. Then he said, yes, and he got warm and his body temperature went up. And right away I'm thinking, well, that kind of sounds like what Danny Roddy talks about with checking your body temperature, right, as a proxy for thyroid function.
Right.
Then he was like, well, I went and got my thyroid levels checked and they're all good. And after that point, it was like everything opened up. He started talking about fish oil oxidation. He started talking about the poof oxidation with what's the other guy's name that he's very close with? Man, I forgot his name. Kate Shanahan, I think is what the doctor's name is, and Paul Saladino were all ganging up on the poof idea, discussing about oxidation and what it causes, like the byproducts, like aldehydes. And then from there, he starts talking about nitric oxide most recently and its association with insulin resistance. Yes. Bro, if that doesn't shout rate Pete, I don't know what does.
Yes. And I don't want to call anybody out that doesn't, isn't here right now, and well, except Paul Saladino. But but let's say a very, very popular member of the Ray Pete community has told me that Paul has actually has messaged and asked about those sort of things and commented about those Ray Pete videos, right? That some are made by Danny, some are just those like old school clips from like Ray Pete being on the radio shows and all that stuff.
Yep.
Right? So we know for sure he's aware of the guy, okay? And he's read his work, I'm sure. And the whole plagiarism issue is one issue, and we can talk about it, It's more so what's happening now that, I want to talk to you about it, because we're having, like I said, he's been kind of the face of that, where Sean Baker at least doesn't annoy me, because here's Sean Baker, eat steak, lift weights. Like, I'm fine with that.
Same thing over
but
and
I'm
over.
fine with that. Like, he's not saying like some of those early carnivore dumb things, right? Like, if you only eat steak, doesn't matter how many calories you'll eat, you won't get fat. Like, he's not saying any of those things. You know what I'm saying? That are just like, you're like, like he's just saying, eat steak, it'll cure you. That's fine. He's not really specifying it. And lift weights, and that's it. He's doing his thing. He's not an annoying asshole about it, right? And then Paul is the response, like I said, to that vegan era of dieting, and where he's now talking that we shouldn't eat mushrooms, we shouldn't eat garlic, you shouldn't eat onions,
potatoes,
you shouldn't eat potatoes, you shouldn't eat on and on and on and on and on. And then he should just, he has this like pyramid diet now, right? Of like, it's just animal based, which is still funny, hilarious to me that it's called animal based. It's called animal based. But then you eat fruits for breakfast with bananas and papaya. And so it's like, why isn't it fruit-based?
The funny thing about his how he describes an animal-based diet is that it's evolutionary consistent, right? And let's assume that it is. One of the things that you would not find an evolutionary consistent diet maybe 10,000, 20,000 years ago is a fully functional papaya or banana without seeds in it. Bro, where do you find, wasn't there such a huge artificial selection that humans made that took tens of thousands of years to get the actual, what is that, Kavana banana, the banana we have now, which is so dramatically
long
different from banana.
and you can eat the whole thing, whereas before the bananas used to have seeds and they were like seeds, short, right? And they were really weird, and they didn't quite ripen the same way. They were a lot more similar to plátanos, but still plátanos also just are pure starch, right? They don't have any of the seeds inside. So, well, yeah, let's chat about that. I made a post about it too, where there's a picture from the 1600s by Stanchi, this Italian Renaissance painter, and he painted a watermelon.
I saw that.
And some other fruits. And if you look at this fucking watermelon, it looks nothing. I mean, yeah, it's circular, and you could, I guess you could pick out that it's a watermelon, but it doesn't look like what we know of today as a watermelon. If you saw that at a grocery store today, you wouldn't eat that. You would think that's a terrible looking watermelon. And so, this whole idea of fruits like watermelon and papaya and these beautiful, sweet, delicious bananas being ancestrally consistent. Like, are they really ancestrally consistent? And how far ancestrally are we talking, by the way? That's another thing. It's like, ancestrally how? Like 1,000 years? 2,000? Like 500,000 years? Like, how many years are we talking about? What is ancestors?
So the banana now, which I know because I did a post on it probably 3 years ago. I just don't remember the name of the banana specifically. Something like Kavanaugh banana. But the banana now is probably 50 to close to 70 years old.
That's
so
it.
it doesn't
50
fall
to 70. Let's round it up. Let's say it's 100.
100.
People don't think ancestors, right? When they say that word, they think paleo man, right?
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, bro, it does not fall on an ancestrally consistent diet. And even if it did, the idea of it being ancestrally consistent would actually be counterproductive to his argument because these fruits back then didn't have the same fructose concentration that they do now. They didn't have the same medicinal properties that they do now. Fruits now are mainly just sugar. Fruits then had compounds like the flavonoids we associate with beneficial effects, quercetin, whatever it may be, in such a higher concentration that it would be totally against his argument in regards to like vegetables are bad because they contain the same flavonoids and glucosinolates, all these different plant compounds would have been present in those fruits that were evolutionary consistent. So his entire argument about being evolutionary consistent is not only counterintuitive to what he's stating, it's just plain wrong. Like it doesn't match up.
Mm-hmm. So that's the thing about fruits. Vegetables the same, right? A lot of the vegetables that we had 100 years ago
not the same.
Were not the same. I had growing up, my grandma had wild blueberries growing in their like kind of. They lived in like in Russia we call it a dacha, like an outhouse, whatever, farmhouse, and they're like tiny, and they're not quite sour, but I guess you would say tart. They don't look like the fucking blueberries we although I'm pretty sure he's like anti-blueberries too, right? Because berries have seeds, and so whatever the point. So the point is, right? It's like all these things which we have in our market today. It's not, even if it's organic, right? Even if it's grown in the best. I mean, is there anything like that you're aware of, bro, that has been around for centuries, say, and it has looked the same and hasn't changed much in a long time? Like, I don't know, man.
Centuries? Yeah, there's a couple, and it's the one that he bashes, like the brassica family vegetables, potatoes, and garlic. Literally.
So, and again, now you have potatoes that are huge, and all sorts of potatoes. Also, what region of ancestrally consistent people are we talking about? Are we talking about Peru? Have you ever seen how many potatoes they have in Peru? How many varieties of potatoes?
As well.
Yeah, like they have like literally over, I don't remember, but it's an astounding amount. We in America and Russia too, and probably Brazil is Brazil has a lot more variety with fruits and veggies. I mean, that's why I would love to go there one day too, by the way. But like in America, you have like white potato and like russet potato and like what
red potato.
Sweet potato. Okay, sweet potato.
Yeah.
But that's it. There's not. But right, you go to a place like Peru, and they have like fucking billion different potatoes. And so when you say potato, it's like, which potato are we talking about?
Right.
And which one is the ancestrally consistent one, the correct one? And
Yeah. So this guy really talks on a surface level about ancestrally consistent foods. He doesn't also discuss something that's really important. It's the people that grew up on those foods. There's mitochondrial haplotypes, which play a huge role in regards to what foods are evolutionary consistent and also helpful for those people. If you take somebody from Africa that grew up eating a lot of grains, very little meat, maybe some dairy products, depending on what culture you decide to use, like the Maasai, and then you compare it to somebody from the Middle East or Asia, they're totally different diets. Asian people will consume a lot more vegetables. In fact, Vietnam, the reason why Vietnamese people consume a lot of vegetables is because that's literally all they could grow after the Vietnamese War. And that made a substantial impact on their gut microbiome diversity, the foods they're able to break down and digest, versus somebody like in Africa, once again, that might be totally different. And that comes down or can be traced back via mitochondrial haplotypes. You can literally find out based on somebody's mitochondrial DNA what foods may be helpful for them or not. If he were to put that context into his dietary perspective, a lot of the foods that he excludes would actually have to be inclusive, depending on the population you decided to study. You decided to study the Irish, way more potato consumption. Right there and then, this proves his entire argument about potatoes being bullshit.
Okay. So you do think that there is such a thing as, genetic, whatever you want to call, genetic is just the word we use, right? There's an adaptation that happens in...
That's it. It's an adaptation.
Adaptation that happens in people that has happened and will continue happening, right? Because we still eat different diets in different parts of the world. Although, like a lot of them are starting to become a lot more similar to each other, right? Like, they have 7-Eleven in Japan now, or what? But you know what I'm saying, right? There a lot of foods are starting to spread across the world a lot more, but there's still a big variety, right? If you go to India, the shit they eat there, it's like so different than from the foods that, you know,
Exactly.
white people eat here. So you think that those adaptations over time, over evolution, whatever you want to call it, has happened in people. So so there's really no one ancestrally consistent food or
There you go.
food group or okay.
Right. The further down the rabbit hole you go with genome-wide associations, the further you realize that any food can be considered beneficial if the organism or the individual is able to break it down, utilize the fuel substrates, and not have any issues digestively, neurologically, physiologically in general. So yeah, even nowadays, we're consuming so much more fatty acid, carbohydrate combination of foods that some genotypic changes have occurred. Like people are not the same as they were 50 years ago. So there's no one size fits all diet, no real evolutionary consistent diet. The argument that this guy is making basically falls on the spectrum of toxicology, like plant versus fruits versus grains and the toxins that they carry and what effects they have on people. That's literally what his argument's foundation is. Okay. And that's also shaky.
So let's pick that apart and talk about that. So I will give you like his side of the story, right? And a lot of it's not just him. Like I said, there's that Gundry guy. Gundry, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, with the lectins.
Yeah, the guy that wears fucking like purple colored glasses, like these weird fucking outfits that he has. Like he's like a preacher at like a black church or something. Anyway, like, you know, he dresses so strange. It's just really weird to me. Like, why are you dressed like? Anyway, that guy doesn't say, right? He talks about things like, because again, and also, I've met so many people. I've literally had a conversation once with somebody. They go, "But it has so many lectins in it." And I go, I go, "What's a lectin?" And they don't know what it is. It's an anti-nutrient. What the fuck does that mean? What's an anti-nutrient? Right. You know, things that's not found in meat. And it's okay. What is okay. So I want to break that down with you because you're a guy that knows his chemistry. You know what's up. So we have these groups. Is there like an umbrella of different, could you group them for us? Like, because the big words you currently hear is oxalates, lectins, what's the shit in mushrooms? Remind me.
The ergot alkaloids.
Yeah, is it ergothioneine?
Ergothioneine is I think it's an amino acid version.
One. A lot of people say it's a beneficial one, which is why they take mushroom teas.
It's basically like all of the compounds that you find in a human body. If you put the word ergo in front of it, it's mushroom now. So you have ergosterol, which is just cholesterol of the fungus. Ergoamines, which are basically fungal versions of amines. So there's different versions in different organisms, but they have overlap. Like cholesterol, once again, overlaps with fungal cholesterol. Vitamin D3 overlaps with fungal vitamin D2. So it's give or take.
Is there a big anti-nutrients? What is an anti-nutrient? Is it a one thing? Is it a protein? Is it a carb? Right. What are these things?
Well, you can consider anything an anti-nutrient if it basically blocks some nutrients absorption. So it doesn't have to be one specific group of compounds. Like flavonoids is one of the main ones they discuss as anti-nutrients because it binds to iron. Flavonoids have a lot of what's called hydroxyl groups on the outside of the compound, which is basically water. And it'll react with the iron and make a complex. And it prevents the iron from being absorbed if it does that. But you can have something like pure glucose that has hydroxyl groups interacting with iron and preventing its absorption. Is glucose now considered a anti-nutrient? Like it's so context dependent on the organism's ability to digest and break down some of these compounds. And then the interactions with some of the other enzymes present in those organisms. And then you could even take it further and consider the gut microbiome of all of those organisms, which play a huge role in some of these compounds. Like, I got to give it to vegans. Vegans consume a lot of plant products, and any detrimental plant product, most of the compounds in plants that could be detrimental, they don't have an issue with, probably because they have a higher amount of fermentation microorganisms that break down those plant molecules into beneficial compounds. Like, I've read reports of vegans that have a distinct gut microbiome composition that produces all of the essential amino acids, the ones that we need for meat and so on. And so they don't need it from these sources of meat. They can just make it themselves from helping bring in fiber. The bacteria produce it and they absorb it. The extent to which they absorb it, I'm not quite sure. But so the gut microbiome plays a role. The ability for the body to break down these compounds play a role. And then the interaction between these compounds with other components play a role. And as such, you can't ever classify one thing as an anti-nutrient broadly in all categories.
Okay.
Oxalates, oxalic acid may be an anti-nutrient to some, it may actually be beneficial to others. Maybe a pro-crystallization, a calcium deposit issue to some, and then to others, it can actually act as an antifungal. And so there's no way to know for sure unless you know the patient's context.
And what about alkaloids? You know, when you say that word alkaloid.
So alkaloids, it comes basically from the fact that they are able to increase the alkalinity of a solution. And alkaloids fall into various different compounds, but they're usually cyclic. Alkaloids themselves can have some really nasty effects on DNA. They were called alkylating agents. So if you had a double strand of DNA and it was just running straight this way, an alkylating agent would be something that kind of binds to DNA and extends it. And so it manipulates DNA in a way that's not good. You can't have gene effects. You'll have mutations happening. You can have carcinogenesis happening. And we see that even with some of the organisms that do break down plants, like ruminants. So it can be very detrimental to some. Now, it falls on a spectrum, because if you have just a low amount of alkaloids in plants and fruits and vegetables, which you can't get away from, it's literally in every food, including honey.
Yes, which I wanted to bring up, right? So it's like, so it's the stuff that's found in literally everything, right? Is it found in meat? Is it found in animal meat, stuff like that? Or is that a whole different category?
It's a different category. You'll find more heterocyclic amines. Or what that basically means is like amino acids that form rings or have nitrogen in the ring. And so they can be carcinogenic as well. But that's something else. But yeah, you can have some alkaloids from what the animal was consuming before. Just like with honey, I think the one is called pyrrolizidine.
Yes, pyrrolizidine alkaloids, and they're found in herbal teas, very commonly, because teas, is still a big industry, so they measure those quite often, and it's found in honey. So, and
he's so supportive of honey.
Mr. Saladino eats a lot of honey, so his whole thing is like, don't eat anti-nutrients, right? Because you want to stay away from those.
And this is like, if you consider in a spectrum of alkaloids how bad one can be, like I said, depends on the dose, depends on what kind. Pyrrolizidine alkaloids are really bad. And so if he's consuming honey all the time, that he has no idea if the bees were taking nectar from plants that contain these alkaloids and bringing it back, making the honey, and the honey has these alkaloids, and he's telling everybody, consume honey because it's ancestrally consistent. There's no detrimental compounds. And then you find out that there's alkaloids in there. It's like his entire argument breaks down. It's the same alkaloids in the honey as it is in the plants he says not to consume. So either he comes forward and says, guys, honey, it's bullshit. Or the argument falls apart.
Okay. So it seems to me like there's anti-nutrients in everything, huh? And so it's kind of difficult to find the perfect food, which is what he's searching for, because the whole it's a philosophy, right, that he's trying to sell to you. People don't understand it. They think that it's and so obviously, first of all, to point out, obviously there's not enough of these anti-nutrients or alkaloids or whatever in any of these foods to fucking kill you on the spot, right?
Nowhere near.
All this stuff where the people say it's carcinogenic, or it could potentially affect this, affect that. These are like studies that you're doing that in a petri dish, right? This is that's how they're measured. No?
Yeah, most, I would say 80%, if I had to estimate, would be, on a petri dish. And then some of the other ones, like 10% extra, so 90, 95 you're looking at in total, would be on animals, like mice. Now, he loves to cite studies to support his argument regarding this with mice studies. And I don't have a problem with that. But the thing you have to take into consideration is that mice have an hyperactive response to some of these compounds because they have different genetic differences from us. For example, their telomeres are longer, and so they tend to have a hyper response to some of these alkaloids, and it can make it look like these alkaloids are so bad that if you translate it to a human study, you would see the same thing. Well, what do you know? You don't see that really. And one of the reasons why as well is because humans have different CYP enzymes, cytochrome P450 enzymes, that are able to metabolize and negate the effects of some of these alkaloids, even if you were to consume it in a large amount. So it's so dependent on the person. It's so dependent on the food, but more often than not, you're not going to consume something that has such a high level of alkaloids that it's going to cause you to either have some huge digestive issue or flat out die. Like you just don't hear of somebody dying from alkaloid poisoning. It's very rare.
Yeah. So it's sort of like that. It's toxicology, right? It's sort of like that water thing. You know, water's good, so drink more water. Okay, so I can give you a gallon of water. You'll drink.
Yeah.
You'll feel a little nauseous, and then I'll give you another. You know that you can kill somebody with water.
With water.
So does that mean don't drink water?
Right.
No, don't. It just means that. So there's
It falls on a spectrum.
Right. There's a spectrum, and the dose makes the difference. It really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then you also brought up to me alkaloids found in disease called ergotism, or what is it called?
Yeah,
in the development.
ergotism.
So I'm curious about what you wanted to tell me about that.
Yeah, so grains tend to have fungal infections pretty easily, and mycotoxin or mycotoxicosis, where basically fungal metabolites that are just not good for you, are found in higher concentration in grains like oats, rye, wheat, and so on. So a lot of the issues that many people have with grains may just be related to the mycotoxins. If they can't metabolize it, their gut microbiome composition is one that isn't supportive of breaking those down, and so on. But at the same time, it's thanks to some of these alkaloids found in funguses and mycotoxins that we came up with something like LSD. Because back in the 1600s, there was an outbreak of ergotism somewhere in Europe. I just don't remember where. And they thought that there was a demonic possession in the entire city because they consumed bread that had this ergot alkaloid. The ergot alkaloid was very similar to LSD. And so it caused them to have hallucinogenic experiences, and they felt like they were demonically possessed. A couple centuries later, the guy that worked on synthesizing LSD makes it from an ergot alkaloid. And it is now, you have other derivatives like bromocryptine in the raised peat sphere that use bromocryptine for reducing serotonin. It's an alkaloid. It's literally derived from the same fungus that caused that demonic possession issue in the 1600s. But that can be used medicinally to lower serotonin, improve dopamine. And so something as simple as ergotism and the disease associated with ergotism can be broken down into something beneficial, like the use of bromocryptine from ergot alkaloids.
So I want to point that out, right? So it seems like a lot of these alkaloids, anti-nutrients, have been used medicinally, traditionally.
That's the thing.
And they still are, right? Berberine, right? That's an alkaloid, right? That could be considered an anti-nutrient. Am I right? Or
You're absolutely right.
Okay, and a lot of people take that shit, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these other, supplements. So, besides, so again, the dose makes the difference, right? So maybe a lot of this alkaloid or anti-nutrient could potentially have a bad effect on you, but it also can be used medicinally. It's sort of like an antibiotic, right? If you take too many antibiotics, it's probably not good for you. You're going to destroy your whole fucking gut flora. But if you take a little bit of it, it could be very beneficial, and for some people, literally life-changing, right? Or if you're life-threatened, you could literally save your life, right? But if you keep taking it, just massive amounts of it, you could probably kill yourself eventually, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's literally how people should see this, is if they have a sensitivity to something that has alkaloids, like potatoes, and glycoalkaloids is the issue in potatoes, then maybe you should try something else like rice. There's no alkaloids, and you can still consume starch. If you have a problem with rice, then maybe the issue isn't the alkaloids in the first place. Maybe it's your gut biome, and you just can't break down certain disaccharides. If you find out that's not the case, well, do you have enough stomach acid being produced? Do you have enough bile being produced? Like, these issues can go far, far further down the physiological road that Paul Saladino has never considered. All he focuses on is the nutrients and if they're good or bad and why that may be because of whatever study he decides to pull. Once again, like you mentioned, falls on a spectrum because of the dose. Some are even, there's different kinds of toxicological responses. You have linear responses, you have undulating responses where in a very small dose you have a really bad response, and then you increase the dose a little bit and it kind of falls and there's no response anymore. So it also depends on that. Depends on the person's biome composition, depends on the person's genetics, the person's enzyme capability. so many things to consider that nobody will actually take the time to do so because it'll take way too much time.
Mm-hmm. And another consideration is like what you pointed out. Maybe currently you're having a tough time digesting this food or these types of foods, and maybe over time you'll be able to fix that or improve that, or maybe not. But you can't just blank statement say that, right? It's sort of like the Danny Roddy issue, right? Of Danny not being able to drink milk for however many years. Well, not drinking milk, and then when he first tried drinking milk, he said he was having diarrhea for just months at a time. And then he took some antibiotics, improved his gut motility, and lo and behold, now he drinks the required
without problem.
three whatever liters of milk or whatever the fuck it is, and no problem, right? So just because you've had an issue, just because your eczema acted up because maybe you were having a salad 2 years ago, does not necessarily mean that it could be still going on today. Maybe that issue has gone away, or maybe not. But it's very difficult to say that, right? So, it's the alkaloids. Right. It's this one tiny little particle in this food. Out of how many, by the way, is there other stuff in food? How many like alkaloids or anti-nutrients are in a radish? You know what I'm saying? It's not just that stuff. It's not just those few things. Am I right? Isn't it like thousands?
All right. So this comes from another paper I sent to you. But so when you measure plant compounds, you do it through a method called liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. And basically what it's able to do is separate compounds so finely detailed that you can get a graph of different compounds based on different atomic functional groups. And what you generate from one fruit or vegetable is about 50 to 200,000 or more different compounds from that fruit or vegetable.
So 50 to 200 compounds are found. 200,000, sorry.
200,000.
Oh, I think you said 200. Okay, so there's 50 to 200,000 different compounds found in things like fruits and vegetables. And so if you point to one and say oxalates, that's the one that's making you sick, how the fuck do you know? Why did that become, by the way, why is that the thing that people just started picking on lectins and oxalates? Is it because they're just so easy to identify, or are they so abundant? Or
right. So even though you have these 50,000 to 200,000 different compounds or more, there are some that have a greater physiological effect. Oxalates can be one of them. Lectins can be one of them. Mm-hmm. But it's also dependent on the patient. So some patients, the oxalic is what's known as an acid, like any other acetic acid, vinegar. It's literally about the same thing. So when you take acetic acid, or you take oxalic acid, or whatever, your body produces some, your gut microbiome produces some. It can react with calcium and form crystals, just like uric acid reacts and forms crystals. And if it deposits anywhere, it can be an issue. Usually, it'll deposit in the kidneys. And so people that have high uric acid or oxalic acid have calcification and gouts. But the thing is, that's also dependent on a couple of other factors, like is the patient already overweight? Is the patient already insulin resistant? Does the patient not take care of it? Do they smoke? Do they drink alcohol? And so their liver is not doing too well. Their kidneys are already not functioning well. And the oxalic acid becomes an even greater issue. Are they overworked? Are they overstressed? So yes, some compounds have a greater physiological response, but again, in what context?
It's sort of like that thing with vegans that happens, right? The people that are ex-vegan, that haven't eaten quality protein in a long time, right? And then they start eating, because I'm seeing a lot of those right now online, the ex-vegan types that are like going, fuck vegetables, I'm tired, I'm eating them for 10 years. They start eating meat, and now they're full carnivore. There's a lot of those people. A lot of them follow me. They talk with me often. And so I think the same thing is happening there, right? It's like because they haven't eaten the quality protein in a long time, they start eating this protein, and then they're like, oh my God, this is all we need. All that other stuff is useless. And it's because they feel so much better. So they're having this probably initial response of like, oh my God, your body's like soaking up the protein. It's loving it. And so it's very easy to just, be black and white, right? Now, okay, I don't know what I was doing. Those vegetables are useless. Fruits are useless. It's just all about meat and eggs and carnivore lifestyle.
And then they will promote the idea that Paul puts out about vegetables and whatever being detrimental to you because they have that experience, but they don't consider the fact that maybe they were just consuming so much that they just ruined their health.
And nothing else, too, right? That's another thing to
Exactly.
point out. Nothing else. They were just consuming vegetables, right? Just vegan stuff.
yeah,
And then they were
yeah,
also
vegan stuff.
consuming shitty replacement foods, right? Like whatever, the fake meats, the Beyond Burger stuff, which has a lot of, by the way, those oxalates and all that kind of shit. But probably in higher amounts than, that's another thing to point out, right? That stuff has a lot more of those, anti-nutrient compounds than a piece of lettuce. Like 100 for sure, right? Because that stuff is so processed. They put a bunch of stuff to hold it together. And there's I'm sure there's some good stuff in there too, of course. But it's not the same as eating, a piece of lettuce or a broccoli.
Yeah, and because you feel so different when you consume. I mean, I've never tried the Beyond Meat stuff, and I never will. But it's obvious, the fillers, the preservatives, the more gunk you put in there, the less it really is like food, and the more it's like some of the stuff that I use in lab to just make buffers. It literally kind of looks like that, or has the same consistency. So, to me, if you can just eat normal food and consume the foods that you don't have an issue with, then you'll be fine. If you have an issue with a food and you want to introduce that food back into your diet, you can't because of whatever reason, then you should look into the reasons why. Is it really just these alkaloids or these anti-nutrients? One of the things that I always consider is, if you want to talk about evolutionary consistency, why isn't that about 100 to 70 years ago, nobody had an issue with digesting foods like gluten or lectins or anything really.
And they were all eaten because that's all that was available. There was no fucking papayas at Whole Foods that are organic from Hawaii, right? Everybody was eating bread because there was nothing else. Everybody was eating potatoes.
They never had an issue.
If you were in Latin America, everybody to this day eats frijoles, rice and beans, right? I mean, that's just a fact. You just can't, right? It's a fact. Okay, so then you get into the issue of okay, well, but this, you get to the philosophical issue, to the heart of the matter, which is, I think people are looking for that secret diet, right? That's going to make them live forever, because there's this substrata of people that didn't eat lectins or oxalates or the nightshade family, and they lived to 150. And here's the thing, they don't fucking exist. And if you want to try it out, I think that's fine. Do your thing. I'm all for people trying stuff. But it's a hard sell for me right now, right? To say that oh, well, okay, well, maybe we are right, but still I want to try to reduce the amount of bad stuff I consume in my food. So, so maybe that's what people are thinking. Because there are people that are smarter about this stuff than Paul Saladino. And that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, I'm going to be the human experiment. Like Dave Asprey, who said he's going to live to 160, who looks like shit, by the way.
He's looking pretty old now.
Which is fine, by the way. I don't need you to, but it's just funny what people say, right? And how they look.
The funniest thing about this anti-aging stuff, right? And doing everything to such an extent that it basically ruins your ability to have a normal life so that you can live longer with this abnormal life, is the fact that most of anti-aging research has been flipped on its head. My professor is somebody hugely interested in anti-aging. He published a paper all about anti-aging, and he started with looking into the ketogenic diet with earthworms and what the effects are on lifespan and then mice. And he's come around to the conclusion that glucose is such an important nutrient to maintain health as you age and to prevent the quicker onset of aging, that you might not want to exclude glucose from your diet.
Look at that. Yeah. So it seems like we're getting deeper and deeper, right? It's like at first it was the diet of maybe not eating certain foods, and then it was just excluding macronutrients, right? And now we're getting to the micronutrients. Now we're getting into the fucking alkaloids with Paul Saladino.
The metabolites
and we just, the truth of the matter is, right, we just haven't had that experiment happen in life anywhere, right? There's no culture on earth that was like, oh, we didn't eat, there's different varieties, right? There's, the Hadza that consume meat. And by the way, a lot of the other shit that the tourists bring them. And
exactly. And they smoke tobacco.
And they smoke tobacco. And it's like, how the fuck can you point to this one thing? I want to listen, because the thing is, I want to genuinely. I want to have oh my God, I know these people, they live to 99, all of them. They don't eat potatoes. And that's why they're living to 99. But it's never the case. But it's never the case.
Yeah. Man, from the data and information on blue zones and the longest lived people, it's so heterogeneous that you can't actually point to a one specific thing, or even a concept like diet being the one thing. In fact, I think most of the reason for why these people live so long has more to do with community and reduction of stress than anything else, which Danny has been on the ball regarding this topic since long ago, long before I even knew about this stuff. So if it's stress that's causing rapid aging, what are the things that induce stress? Well, maybe worrying about every goddamn food that has an anti-nutrient.
Yes, which is why I love that you said that. Yeah, bro, which is exactly what I wanted to tell people. I want the message that I hope people understand. Yeah, because I've talked about this multiple times on my podcast. It's I've been to breakfast and dinners, whatever, with people that are like, are these eggs free range? And it's shut the fuck up, Karen. Just eat the fucking egg, right? It's just eat the eggs. Yeah, no, it's not free range. Yes, they were fed soy and corn. But hang out with me, enjoy my company. I guarantee you will feel better spending some time with your loved one or your good friend and having a good time and eating some crappy food. I guarantee you'll feel better doing that than having your perfect organic pasture raised eggs.
Exactly.
But having a shitty day or not having anybody around you and just being sad about it.
Yep.
You will feel better.
That reminds me of that World War II veteran guy who smoked a cigar and drank a glass of whiskey a day.
Black guy, I think, right?
He lived to 100 something, 115, 116.
Yeah, he was up there. Obama gave him a medal of some sort. I don't remember, but and he was eating ice cream too. He was eating ice cream, and it was just nothing special. Oh, soup. He was a big chicken Campbell soup. Just again, it's these foods. You're how the fuck? But
I think Bray's onto something then, man, with the ice cream.
Hey, I mean, dude. Again, that's another food, right? Dude, when I feel, not even only when I feel stressed. Look, I'll go and have some ice cream. I'll go to a cool new ice cream spot. And I try to find the shops. In LA, there's plenty of them that use organic grass milk and whatnot. So they're all pretty high quality standard ones. And I'll go have some ice cream in a nice waffle cone that was just baked right there or whatever. And it's I feel great. I feel good. I feel happy. I mean, that is something. People really forget that it doesn't not mean anything. It means something, that you feel good after eating a food. It doesn't matter if it has the oxalates. Oh, it has the extra sugar or whatever, too many calories and yada, yada, yada.
Right. Yeah. Like I always say, if you feel bad with food, there's probably something going on with you that you need to address first, and not the food. Because if you're eating that food before and you never had any issues, something changed within you as a person. Maybe you're overstressed, job is an issue, not in a place you want to be in life, whatever it is. Those can have such dramatic effects on how you metabolize different substances that if you never address it, you'll never know. If you're always stressed out, you'll never know.
So I also want to talk about meat, in general, because there's that whole big thing of his says you can eat 99% of animals, but you can't eat, I don't know, we only eat 1% of, I don't remember what the fucking percent that he gives, but certain, you can go to the woods and get a mushroom and it'll fucking kill you, right, for sure, right. Or give you poisoning or whatever. So most animals are edible and most plants are not, actually, right? And which is that's the whole philosophy. Okay. Are there anti-nutrients or things that are not beneficial, let's say in large amounts, in meat?
Yeah, there is. I mean, one of the most carcinogenic compounds that you form by cooking meat is acrolein.
Acronym,
And if
which vegetarians were on about, by the way, years ago, and everybody just doesn't talk about it anymore.
they're not wrong. It's always a concern. But guess what happens when you consume acrolein rich meat with some raw onions that are probably high in some of the compounds that Paul Saladino doesn't like organosulfur compounds. They neutralize the carcinogenic acrolein. And so you don't have to worry about it inducing a carcinogenic effect. Fiber will chelate any kind of carcinogenic compounds out of the body. The mixture of the two foods are literally a perfect combination to neutralize most of the mutagenic or carcinogenic compounds in either one of the foods. It's always going to be an issue with any food that as you cook it, or even if it was raw, that there's always going to be some kind of compound that has a mutagenic or carcinogenic capacity or capability.
Even if you eat it raw, just to point that out too, right? Because
even if you eat
that's
it raw.
Another big fat thing right now of people eating it raw, the whole autogenous fungal planets. I don't know if you're a fan.
I'm aware.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
Right. That's big.
I used to really listen to autogenous stuff. I never really went forward with it. I did the raw liver stuff, but it never made that much a difference. Like I felt a little more, I don't know, awake is what I would describe it as, but that's it. There's never been a dramatic shift in my ability to exercise, function, have neurological benefits, anything like that. Never been.
You didn't grow a third eye? Your third eye didn't open up?
I wanted it to, man, but.
But hey, man, I mean, you talk to these people and that's the way they make it seem, right?
Like it makes that much of a difference in their life when.
Like, what's that psychopath on YouTube? Sverige, the guy, the Swedish guy. You know, I mean, you fucking watch some of those guys' videos and you just think this guy, like, you know.
Like I like him, though. He's honest. He's honest.
He said, no, like, that's the same thing, you know, it's like with everybody. Nobody is, like, perfect or completely retarded. You know, there's people, it's on a spectrum. You know, people share good stuff. But I'm just saying, he makes it seem that, like, if you eat this liver that's been sitting in a jar for 6 months, you're gonna be able to talk to angels. And that's not true. Because I've done the raw liver thing too, right? And it's like, first of all, I don't enjoy it. Why are you laughing?
I'm just imagining him talk to angels.
Talk to angels. Is that a song by Trey back in the day?
I don't know.
Anyway.
But yeah, I agree.
So you haven't had that experience, right? Like, again, yeah, because listen, I enjoy liver. I grew up with it in Russia. I enjoy it cooked with some potatoes and some sour cream. I don't enjoy it raw. Can I eat it raw? Yes. Now, be honest now. Are you guys, not you, but are you guys doing that shit for the gram? Or are you doing it because you genuinely enjoy raw, like eating raw meat? I would bet to say that it's mostly to do it for the gram, because it looks cool, because it's something new. Because again, we've done the vegan, we've done the vegetarian, we've done the paleo, we've done the carnivore. Like, there's not a lot of places left for you to get attention, you know? And it's like, oh, well, hi, I eat my meat raw. And it's like, fuck, you know? Because we've done raw vegan, by the way. Remember? Because it was like vegan. I watched that evolve in LA, especially because I was here in the early days of all that. Like Raw Christina, do you remember that girl? I don't know if you've.
Yeah. I do.
She still has a huge following. I'm pretty sure.
She looks way older now.
Well, yeah. I mean, the girl that says her eye color changed because of going vegan and whatnot. Anyway, I mean, I watched her evolve from like just being vegan and talking about how it was normal to lose your period and you're detoxing, because she was one of those early OG YouTube video people. And then to being raw. I think she might be still raw. Although, by the way, I don't believe it for a second. I think that she just eats other foods behind the scenes. I really genuinely don't think she's honest about what she
always
eats.
the case. It's always the case.
Because if she was genuinely raw vegan, dude, I've seen people who are genuinely raw vegan. I've tried eating for days genuinely raw vegan. You gotta be a cow to survive raw vegan for years. Like, seriously. I mean... Dude, you just can't absorb anything. You're eating like completely raw foods. Like, get out of here. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about meat having anti-nutrients. How about fruit? The beneficial stuff. The stuff that's allowed on the Saladino diet, on the animal-based diet. Okay, we talked about honey. It has pyroxylidine.
Yeah.
Right?
Pyrrolizidine.
Pyrrolizidine. There we go. Which is found in tea and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Do fruits have any of these alkaloids or anti-nutrients?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of a paper specifically on the fruits consumed in Congo, so the country in Africa. And if it's not the fruits that are imported or the ones that are modernized, like a normal pineapple now or watermelon now, then they consume their native fruits. And one of the things that you notice about these native fruits is that they contain cyanogenic glycosides. Cyanogenic glycosides is basically glucose plus cyanide together.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you metabolize it, it releases cyanide. And guess what? It's an alkaloid that can also induce mitochondrial damage. In fact, cyanide is what kills people because it interferes with mitochondrial respiration. So if native fruits have this capacity, another one is ackee from Jamaica. You know that fruit that if you eat it, you could die from Jamaica?
Mm-hmm.
Ackee. It contains a compound called hypoglycine, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so these fruits that would be otherwise evolutionary consistent, if Paul had no idea about and consumed them, he'd feel pretty shitty because it contains the same compounds that he discusses shouldn't be consumed, like the ones in vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And it just adds more weight, in my opinion, to the fact that you can't generalize and say that fruits are evolutionary consistent, especially when you're consuming papayas that are just modernized and rich in fructose.
Yes.
Once
Which
again,
are not evolutionary consistent. And the reason that they have less of these compounds that are anti-nutrient, give you the anti-nutrient effect, is because we've bred them that way. Us, like the recent people, not our ancestors. Papayas haven't been around for that long. I mean, fuck if I know. Maybe they were 1,000, but I'm sure they haven't looked the same that they look now, right? And they
mean, even now with the fruits in Congo, it's the native fruits now contain those same cyanogenic glycosides that you do not want to consume from vegetables, or that he would say don't consume this vegetable because it has cyanogenic glycosides. So if even now these fruits contain some of these compounds, how accurate is his philosophy in general? I reckon it's not very accurate. It's actually very premature.
Okay. So it's like a teeter-totter effect, right? It's like there's no bad, there's no good, there's bad and good. That, like to get Taoist on you, I guess, right? There's bad in good and there's good in bad.
The Wu Wei, middle path or something like that.
You know what I'm talking about, my man. That it's like, you can't, there's sadly, I mean, okay, what's the closest thing that we know that doesn't have? Is it rice? I mean, is white rice? Is that because a lot of people do?
No, it's not, because it still contains heavy metals.
Right, aluminum. Right, it's super.
Depends on the soil.
Yeah, and you can soak it in water and blah blah blah. But it's like you're not gonna get rid of it 100%. You just fucking not.
Exactly.
Some of it's gonna get in your food, right? And then also how you're cooking it. Oh, you're cooking even in stainless steel. Oh yeah, okay. Stainless steel also chips. It all chips. I mean, not as bad as Teflon or whatever. But there's nothing on this planet, and it's sad in some sense that it's that way, because, I think that's where vegans come from, because they think that, okay, if I just not eat meat, like things are safe, I'm not hurting anybody. But then, that has been, on social media at least, has been kind of getting destroyed in the last couple of years, right? Of like farmers talking about how many animals they got to kill in order to farm beans, or
Now vegans have another argument.
They have a new thing? What's that?
It's called vegan organic farming practices, where they basically don't monocrop. So there's multi-crops in one area, which helps. It's great. That's what you should be doing. Uh-huh. But at the same time, you don't introduce some of the composting that are present when you have cows there. I mean, if anybody would be well suited to discuss this, I think it's the sisters. I forgot their names.
Strong Sisters?
Yeah, Strong Sisters.
Ooh, okay. I'll bring it up to them. I'll check. Yeah, but how do they grow food? Because you need some sort of...
no idea. Barely read
and also, it's like you have like mycorrhiza in the soil, and like that is a it's a, what is it? Is it a fungi?
Fungal.
Yeah, it's a fungi, right? But that thing consumes bugs and little things that are in the dirt, living beings. Mm-hmm. So how small? It's like big killing, like big cows that are cute. No good. Don't kill them.
Yeah.
Small things, it's okay. Like if they're killing each other and I'm not seeing it, it's fine. So, we're just, it's like, sadly, it's this thing of like, there's nothing angelic and precious in this world where it's like, okay, this is the food that has only good nutrients. It seems like to me, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, this is the food. It has everything you need. It's like that Soylent idea, right? It's like, just drink Soylent It has everything you need and nothing that you don't need, and you're good. So with in Paul Saladino's world, that's meat. Just eat meat. But then, he found out like, well, shit. I can't function without carbohydrates. I don't feel good. My thyroid goes to shit. I get cold, which Danny, by the way, pointed out to him, and we wanted to have a discussion with him very early on.
Right, so
very
there's
early
that
on
aspect too.
Yeah.
I remember Danny making a video that he discussed with Paul, and Paul wasn't very happy in the way he came forward regarding this. And then he goes and makes a video a couple months later about how his thyroid wasn't functioning, so he introduced fruits. Bro, where do you, like, he thinks we're fools. Like, we know you got it from Danny. Why don't you just give some credit? That's the issue. That's the issue at hand. It's not him changing his mind. It's not him introducing foods. It's not him being wrong about anything. It's give credit where it's due. We know you're plagiarizing.
Yes. And because if you're going to plagiarize, you got to plagiarize well. And he's not, right? Because like you said, there's so many holes in this thing where it's like, well, what about that? What about that? At least if it's an honest, unique idea, maybe if it was his idea, didn't seem like somebody else already said that, it would be like, okay, Paul, well, how about this, right? And then you could point it out. But it's obvious that he's just, and he'll keep doing that. And people like that.
Definition of a grifter.
Right. And people, I understand people want to make money, but I understand. Our world is our culture everywhere, no matter where you are, whether you're in the Philippines or fucking America. It's you got to make money, so you got to have a thing to follow. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way it is. So I get it. Yeah. People grift toward that way.
Right. But there is a Wu Wei. There's always a middle path. It's not vibrant. It's not something that's marketable, and it's not something that attracts people like a extreme side of a spectrum with veganism or carnivore. But I think that the people that go on those spectrums, they always fall back. They rotate back and forth until they kind of level out, and they're right in the middle. Just like most of...
Hopefully. Or I know the ones that just keep doing it for 50 years, and then they're 70, and, and then just like it's forgotten about.
Can't do much. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean... Yeah, there's, it's cliche, because it's also cliche to be that way, right? It's such people, that also became like a thing that people would say online. It's like a balanced diet. What does that even mean? Like, there is, what do you mean balance? It's not, like, there's no such thing. And like, there kind of like is, it's just, it's cliche and cheesy to say, because it doesn't mean a lot. Like, it's not specific enough. It's, Kyle brought that up in one of my podcasts with him when he said, like, it's much easier to follow a strong horse. A horse that's like, or I forgot how he put it, but it's much easier to follow somebody that just goes, hey, Pedro, carbs are bad. All of them. Don't eat them. It's way easier to just be like, okay, and then just follow that person than it is to follow somebody like you and I, or Kyle, like we have a conversation of like, I don't know, man. Right? It's like, I see what you're right about what you're saying. Like, there's bad stuff, but like, it's not like all bad. Yeah. It's like a little good too. And it's like, and then you get stuck, and people don't like that. People like
but that is the scientific method in a sense. The way that a scientist thinks is, we know this to be the case, but we're never going to state it as an absolute truth. Like the meme goes, only a Sith deals in absolutes when it comes to this stuff. There's never a final answer. You can't have an exact answer in science. It's always approximations, always approximations, always approximations. So that's why Kyle comes off in that manner where it's like, yeah, but then no in these cases. Like, it's the way it's always been.
Yeah, because there's levels, right? And you're thinking in deeper and deeper. And yes, at the same time, dude, nobody likes a floppy dick, as they say. You got to have a stance on certain things, right? Like, you can't be like, oh, you know what? It all doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, you, because then you're just, you got to have a stance. And I'm fine with it, which is, like you said, I'm fine with Paul changing his mind. I'm fine with it. I'm just not fine with him, stealing other people's ideas and passing them off as their own. Saying these statements which have so many holes in them, right? And it's just like, well, come on, be honest about this thing. You're not giving us the whole picture. You're giving us a little piece of the picture, and you're saying like, I drew this picture. And it's like, motherfucker, like, Didn't I see that a part of some other bigger picture, and like you don't know, so you just kind of believe him, right?
Yeah. A good example of that most recently is his discussions on insulin, where before, when he started all of this, he would discuss hyperinsulinemia being a really big concern, and you just don't want insulin levels high. And he flip-flopped now to the idea of insulin being a osmotic regulator of ions like potassium and sodium, and so you need insulin to maintain good electrolyte levels. And that's something he would have never said or discussed before when he started the carnivore diet. But now he's starting to discuss it. It's like, if you were wrong about this, what makes you so sure that you won't be wrong in the future about some of the things you're already saying right now?
Yep. And like I said, I'm fine with people saying, hey, this is what I think right now. This has been my experience, my honest experience, which is a big thing too, like I said, because I've also talked to people that are, oh, I've tried the vegan diet or I've tried the carnivore diet. For how long? For like a week or so, and it's like, wow, okay, like you haven't, I need like real experience and like honest, real experience. And so, yeah, I don't know if he was really honestly vegan, I respect his experience that he noticed that when he took out vegetables and his eczema went away. I've talked to a lot of people that have the same experience, but what else I've had, like who else I've talked to? People that have taken it out and then started eating vegetables again, and their eczema never came back. Because, hey, there could be a billion other things that changed in your lifestyle, right? In your sleeping patterns. Hey, maybe you moved to another home. You got rid of some mold, or, fuck. Like, I'm okay with people fixing and themselves and believing in it, but you got to be honest about it.
as that quote goes, to contextualize things takes time, so most people don't take the time to do it.
Yeah. And we're all too busy, it comes back to that thing of just, right, we're like pushed, like, okay, no, put the book out. Oh, you did the diet for 1 year, write a book about it.
Right.
Yeah, and lately, I'm like, not lately, my honestly, which is why, like, I don't have a book. I could have had 7 books by now, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like, I was always very aware of, like, fuck, man, I like what I'm doing and it's working, but I don't know if this is the thing that everybody should be doing. And then a couple years passed and I'm like, hey, this thing is not working anymore, actually. Good thing I didn't put out that book on this thing, because it's like, it's not working. And you got to be fine with that. You got to be okay with that, Hey, maybe the vegan diet is good for a year or 2. Fuck, I'm fine with that, by the way, I'm fine with people trying the carnivore diet. You just got to pay attention.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think there's also a time aspect of it, like you're just mentioning. A year or so, whatever diet, you fix your health in a lot of ways, but then you realize that the diet has finally stopped working. A point of diminishing returns. That's something universal. And a diet isn't excluded from having a point of diminishing returns. And as such, you need to reintroduce some things in, or change your diet a little bit, just the way it's going to be, which I believe is the reason why either some people that claim they've been long-term, whatever dieter that they are, have days where they consume things that they shouldn't be on their diet, or the people that have been dieting for so long also fall off that wagon and go back to a more balanced, so quotation, balanced diet. And I definitely think that the word balance is just not right. There has to be a better...
Let's coin it. We can come up with a new diet, bro.
Yeah. I have no idea what to call it, but the Wu Wei diet, like
bro, I see the
like
book,
that?
the Wu Wei, bro. We're like flexing like Ziz on the cover, like, hey,
Ziz,
the Wu Wei.
bro. We gotta work out, man. That's the most important part about all this.
Thing. Yeah, well, it's like anything in life. Working out, okay, working out is good for you. All right, I'm gonna work out every day, 2 days a week for 6 months. 2 days a week, sorry. Two times a day for 6 months, and I'm gonna go hard. No, like, don't do that. That's too much. I'm not saying working out is that good. I'm saying it's good, but it's not that good. And that's what people are doing with their diets, right? It's like, okay, animal-based diet. That's it. That's the diet for life. Even though it's funny, right? Like everything else in our lives, we improve or change or adjust, right? It's like we technology, right? We don't fly the same planes we used to fly from 50 years ago. Like, they're fucking different, like really different now, right? It's like, why does the diet have to be the same? Like, why does it have to be one diet for life? I mean, it could be, but like, I doubt it. I doubt that, bro, even those people that, ate the whatever Mediterranean diet, that was like, that was like the big fad. Like, I doubt that they ate the same thing day in, day out. Because, hey, have you ever had a girlfriend? Yeah, okay. I'm not saying you did.
Oh, I thought you were going on a talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you ever had a girlfriend, you know that your girlfriend can't eat the same shit every day, right? Am I right? Isn't that like a universal truth? Like, they need to eat.
It is.
It is. So, like, how the fuck did they just eat the same thing day in, day out? Like, they just didn't. No way. Even if that's why we have recipes, right? People came up with shit because it's like, we just can't. We just can't eat the same thing day in, day out.
Yeah. And I think the idea of culinary is really what makes food that much more healthy. Like, one of the things that I learned way back was the fact that a good tasting meal will force your pancreas to release more enzymes for digestion. Whereas if you were consuming a meal that just isn't tasty, it was just meal prep, like a bodybuilding meal, it won't cause your body to release that same amount of pancreatic enzymes that could otherwise be present. And so right there and then, just from the way you cook the meal, you'll have a much better digestion, a much better absorption of those compounds and nutrients, and a much better excretion of the compounds and nutrients that your body doesn't need. Imagine that. You make a meal that tasty, and it makes that much of a difference in somebody's health.
So true. And we've all had that experience, right? It's like, what do you love to do? Go to your mom's house, and your mom cooks you a delicious meal. It's like it's the same food you're eating at home sometimes, same meal, but it's just like better because mom did it, and you're happy to see her, if it's a good day. But we've all had that experience, and you're so right. You'll eat one of those bodybuilding meals and just microwave it up. Another pet peeve of mine. I hate. There's like a billion of those companies right now. They're huge. They're just killing
meal prep companies.
Oh yeah, they're killing it. And I get it. Like, sometimes, like, hey, again, you're not gonna be perfect. I mean, I get it. Sometimes you need like a meal prep, whatever. You need like a food ready to go. You don't have the time.
Bro, all I know is I'm gonna do whatever Ziz did.
Well, just tuna. It was like tuna and water or some shit. I forgot. He had like a shake that had like tuna in it. I can't. It's been a long time since I've. Well, you got to do a lot of roids too, so don't forget that.
And cocaine too. Can't forget that alkaloid.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just to sum it up a little bit and to touch again up on alkaloids and stuff. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So let me try to bring it in this regard. Every food that somebody consumes will have hundreds of thousands of different compounds that we know of, may not know of, and could have effects, may not have effect. Of the ones that we've studied, there are differing effects when it comes to some of the most well-known ones, like alkaloids. Alkaloids in low doses are extremely beneficial, anti-carcinogenic, anti-estrogenic, and so on. Alkaloids in high doses will definitely cause damage to your DNA, mutagenesis, and so on. The body has an ability to metabolize these compounds differently depending on somebody's genetic, gut microbiome composition, and the way they consume the food, the way they prep the food, which makes a huge difference. Food isn't something that we will have a universal diet for ever. There's going to be fluctuations and contextualizations depending on the patient, depending on what somebody needs. And I never, like before when I was more rigid regarding diet, and compared as now where I realized what I was wrong about, I'll never make broad statements about things again because I've been wrong so many times and I've looked stupid so many times regarding this that I know in the future things are going to change again. And that's my way of going forward, my Wu Wei in this sense.
Love it, the Wu Wei. And just to maybe point out, are there specific things that seem like a lot of people like to pick on the chard, the kale, like Dave Asprey, right? Those type of fellas. They like to pick on the Brassica family, right? Which, to be fair, like honestly, I don't eat a lot of that stuff. It's just I'm fucking lazy to cook that stuff, Do you think those things are a little bit more less beneficial and more contain some of the more anti-nutrient stuff, or does cooking them in a certain way and enough pretty much makes it evens out to other foods?
Yeah, so cooking definitely destroys some of these compounds. If you slow cook it, high heat, pressure, it helps to really decrease the amount of whatever alkaloids somebody may be having issues with. But the other thing is, I feel absolutely wonderful when I consume these cruciferous vegetables. And I feel like it's helping me metabolize estrogen, because if I don't consume these, I start feeling a little bit shitty. I start to put maybe a little bit more weight, or I'm just a little more bloated throughout my body. Just feel like I retain water more. And so with that context in mind, it's like, has somebody experimented with this to know how they feel in the first place? Do they feel better with it, without it? And if they do feel better with it, continue it. If they don't, take it out. Try to introduce something else. I can't generalize any further because I just don't know people's experience. It's so hard to just make a broad statement on things. Like yesterday, I was talking about menstruation in women and how it's the higher activity of estradiol in specific increases vasodilation, hits the trigeminal nerve, and causes migraines in women during their menstrual cycle. But then after discussing estrogen's role and progesterone's role, somebody messaged me on Instagram saying that actually they went ahead and improved serotonin signaling, improved their estrogen levels, and their migraines went away. So right there is the dichotomy. I can't say that that person's wrong. Their experience overrides what I know. I just can't generalize any further because I know I will be wrong in a lot of other cases, a lot of other instances.
So do you go out of your way to cook those cruciferous vegetables? Or do you you're fine consuming them raw? You personally, you feel good? You feel good raw?
Raw is good with me, but I also like them cooked because I just don't want to have to chew something so rough, like the roughage of it.
Yeah, it takes time.
Something I don't like. So I prefer cooking, but I don't mind eating it raw, and I have no issues eating it raw. I don't have gas like most people have.
And again, I think, where you are, at your level of health, it's like it's different for everybody, because another person may eat that and it may take them all day to digest that stuff because they have really bad, gut motility, right? They're just, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't. Maybe they just need to improve that, and they could come back to those veggies and try them out again.
Exactly.
And then, is there anything else that, is there other veggies, let's say, that you go out of your way to consume often because they have some of the beneficial stuff?
Organosulfur vegetables, so onions, garlic, and just the allium family in general, because those sulfur-rich compounds that they contain are extremely useful to prevent any kind of microbial diseases, like if you had a bacterial infection or something with viruses, which that's another discussion. What else? The sulfur compounds are great for heart health and also for neurological health. And I feel great when I consume them. They have blood thinning effects as well, so circulation improves. When I go to the gym and I have a meal with whatever sulfur vegetable before, my pump is so much better. So much better. Do you have like a specific thing, like a specific salad or some shit? What do you do? So here's what I used to do way back, and I've never stopped since. 2019, I would cook, it's called kamut, K-M-U-T. It's a grain. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So I would slow cook it, make sure it's really soft, and I would just have it with a salad of onions, garlic, romaine lettuce, and arugula. And then maybe I would include tomatoes. The nitrates and nitrites, the organosulfur compounds with the carbs felt like I just ballooned up. Like my muscles pumped up way more. I had less fatigue. I had less time in between my sets. I'm talking like 20 seconds before I could repeat my sets. And I've kept that since, and I've done that since. I just don't consume it first thing in the morning when I'm going to the gym, obviously, because I don't want to consume salad. That's my first meal. Right, you need some energy. So it's like you're not consuming something that's like you said, you're consuming that for a very specific reason. Heart health, you're not health. Thinking like this is like a calorie dense meal that's going to give you, that's going to replenish your glycogen and all of that. That's not why you're doing it. Yeah, so you're actually thinking about what you're eating, huh? People don't want to do that, really. And I get it. We're all busy. Okay, so, and fruits and stuff and meats, is there anything that you go out of your way to consume regularly? I mean, fruits, I just, as I feel like I want it. Are you kiwi, basic with the fruits, Yeah, kiwis, grapefruits, oranges, berries, a lot of frozen berries, actually, and mangoes. That's pretty much my go-to. Just good old stuff. Oh, and well, seeds. We didn't really bring that up, I guess. We didn't talk about seeds. Are you scared of the raspberry seeds? No, not at all. I understand the whole seed perspective, especially with nuts and vegetable oils. But I just don't go out of my way to consume seeds because I don't like nuts. That's it.
So you're okay. So do you think if people having a handful of nuts and seeds, almonds and whatever, cashews probably are okay?
It's totally different than having pure vegetable oil from the store that's been processed with hexane. Totally different. But at the same time, I don't think some people would be well off consuming more than a handful, 2 handfuls every day or every other day. Simply because you still do get some of those omega-6s that do oxidize into the aldehydes that are just not good for you. That is something, well, like talking about alkaloids, there's the spectrum. When it comes to the oxidation products of omega-6, omega-3s, and so on, there's less of a spectrum. They fall in a very short range of either this is okay, but there's no beneficial effect, or this is not okay. And it depends on the type of fat. Like arachidonic acid is an omega-6 that got oxidized. It's used as a signaling molecule in the body. But at the same time, it's so inflammatory that you don't want too much of it.
Yeah. And to be fair, some of those nuts and seeds do contain some things that people are under eating, I feel like.
Vitamin E.
Yeah, vitamin E, zinc in, is it in the cashews or pistachios? Or maybe both of them. Well, whatever. But my point is, I think also sometimes when people start consuming those things, maybe they feel better. I think that could be a reason why, because they're probably under eating something.
Yeah,
and then
deficiency.
Yeah, and then they introduce that nut or whatever, and they're like, I feel better. And it's like, well, it could be that you're just under eating this other thing, which you could also get from oysters or whatever, right? Or eating beef liver. So something to play around with. Okay, man. So, well, we did a good job, I think. Anything else you want to throw in on there, on us?
I don't know, man.
Besides flying out to San Diego, that's all.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. I need friends, man. I can't be here alone.
I know. We will. I promise. Come on. By the end of the summer,
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, bro. Thank you so much for coming on again, brother. You were the man.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here again.
It's always a good time. And yeah, we'll do this again when Paul or Dave makes another great video for us to discuss or something.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, brother.
End up owning you.